Schnibbit.
Hello everyone and welcome to another speed paint. I know I'm a little late, like a month or so late on this, but better late than never? Yeah, sorry about that. I don't really have an excuse. I just sort of didn't want to work on videos anymore at the time, even though, I think it's kind of funny how I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend all this time making a new intro and a new outro, all these frames and stuff, and then no more videos. I did make one video, or technically two, but one of them was just an edit of an old animation, but anyway. Only one of those new videos actually had the intro and outro, so, I did all that work and then I used it once. But I think that's okay, if that had been it, that wouldn't have been bad. It made for a good video, I think, the one with Jaden, the heavy metal lever video. But yeah, so anyway, this is finally the speed paint for my new animated outro. It features my OC Halen. Might as well tell you more random facts about him because this video is 20 minutes. Pronouns he, him, age 22, he's 5'4", he's a D&D monk, he likes to bake. The outfit I have him in the outro is like a cute little maid cafe outfit. That's because I usually like to draw him in that. Since he likes baking, I just feel like that kind of goes with that, and is super adorable. I've made a lot of Halen animations in the past. If you check my D&D animations playlist, there should be a lot of random stuff of him in there. So I've had him for a while. I created his character in 2017. So I've had a lot of time to animate and draw him, and he is one of my favorite characters. Speaking of which, I wanted to have him in the outro, him as the only character in the outro, because for my new intro I had 3 of my other favorite characters, and I always was like, man, I want to include Halen somehow because I love Halen. So I decided the outro would just be him. It kind of includes all 4 in a nice way, bookending my videos. And it was really fun to do, very in-depth animations for all of them, because, I knew that they would be sort of here for a while, and they'd be seen often, so I wanted to work hard on them. So they end up being, a little higher quality of animations than I normally do, but, for good reason. Speaking of the animation itself, eventually when I get all the frames down here, there will be 31 frames for this specific animation, which is quite a lot for just one kinda short animation, but what are you gonna do? And I just checked the recordings on these speed paints. It looks like the animation took me about 11 and a half hours to complete, which is more than I expected. A lot of the time, something like this will take 8 hours, but, I definitely went all out on kinda checking in-betweens and stuff, making sure they were smooth. Even then, it's not perfect, but I think it is one of my better animations. I am at least proud of it. When preparing to make a new outro, I was sort of agonizing on what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to use Halen because, as I said earlier, he's one of my favorites. I wanted to include him, but I just did not know what I wanted him to do. I was like, do I want to make it a chibi animation and do a little dance and make it really cute? I was debating between songs, though I've always wanted to use that music box cover of one of the Naruto endings, so I did end up going with that for this outro. Really glad that I did. I still love it. But since I was agonizing over what to do, I was chatting with someone and they were like, well, you could do one of those classic, anime walk cycles for your outro. And I was like, oh my god, you're so right. I could totally do a walk cycle. In fact, I could do multiple walk cycles. I could do all 4 of the characters that I love so much walk cycles like an anime outro. That's not totally crazy that I would do all that work for a thing that, it's an outro. Not everybody's gonna stay for it. So, I did give it thought. I was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. But, in the end, I was like, let me just do something that I can sort of loop and I won't hate myself for doing. Even though, there is in this animation, it sort of loops back and forth of him swaying, and then at the end he does a curtsy. And I'm not sure, a lot of people will end up seeing that, because it will just sort of seem like it's just a loop. But I guess it's a little treat for those who do stay to see him do a little curtsy at the end. I don't know, maybe it was just for me. I like it. I think it's really cute, so I'm glad that I did it, so it's all fine. So far, we've still been in the sketching phase of this animation. I'm not quite sure how much you're getting out of this. I tried to speed up certain parts and slow down certain parts that would make it more enjoyable to watch. I mean, but I don't exactly know what everybody is sort of looking for. I would say probably the thing that is the slowest, or at least I had it set as the slowest speed, is probably the line art. Because, it's kind of clearer what's going on there. You can sort of see more of how I'm doing things on that part. And with all this sketch phase, I go back and forth between frames so much, it's a little hard to tell what's going on even at a slower speed. So I try not to make this sketch take up too much of the video, just because it's a little hard to follow things. And I know that, but I didn't want to make this video half an hour long. I didn't want to have to talk for half an hour and then render all of this for half an hour of content, because these videos with recording my whole screen using OBS, the rendering time on these is way longer than the rendering time on things when I use the Clip Studio Paint's built-in time-lapse feature. By the way, if you didn't know, I'm using Clip Studio Paint X. It is the highest form of the program, and I do that because when you get the more expensive version, you have the entire timeline to work with. I don't like spending money, so I sort of agonized over purchasing it at the time, but being an animator, it is so necessary for me to be able to make the timeline as long as I want. So I do not regret it. I mean, Clip Studio Paint is great, if you don't know. It is like the best art program that I've personally ever used, just because of how much you can customize your own setup. So either way, I'm glad I got the higher version of the program. Also, you don't end up seeing it, but I do use Adobe After Effects for compositing the animation. When we get to the line art, you'll see I use the binary tool. I use that because it makes it easier to get things more exact. And then when you're in the coloring phase, you don't have to worry about certain anti-aliasing problems. Which, if you don't know what that means, in digital art, when you paint bucket colors in and the line art is a little softer, the colors won't reach the edge and it'll cause there to be a white line on the inside between the color and the line art. So in order to avoid that altogether, I use the binary tool, and it makes coloring animation way faster. Of course, in Clip Studio Paint, you can also adjust your paint bucket tool. There's a little thing called area scaling. I usually have it set to 4 or 5. That means it'll go like 4 or 5 pixels outside of where it usually would fill. So technically this wouldn't necessarily be a problem for me, but, just to be safe, using the binary tool is just easier all around. And in order to make all the line art smooth, I use OLM Smoother in Adobe After Effects. It's a plugin. Basically, it makes the line art smooth on your animations. All this technical nonsense basically to say, I do these certain things to make my workflow go faster, and if you're an aspiring animator and you haven't tried out some of these things, I think it would be kind of cool to try. You can look up tutorials on YouTube for like OLM Smoother and Adobe After Effects and stuff like that. Of course, I'm saying all this as an amateur, like I have not gone to school for this, I don't know a lot of technical stuff myself. I'm just doing this out of the joy of doing it. I have worked on a few official projects, but just a handful. I tend to sustain myself off of individual commissions rather than getting animation work. I feel like my life is better that way. I don't want to start hating animation because I'm working on an animation I don't particularly like or something like that. Even though I do love animation itself, I have my limits. I'm sure some certain freelance artists can relate, or if you just do art on the side. Anyway, so we've been on the line art phase for a little while. I think you see what I mean by it being a little easier to follow. You've also probably noticed that most of the time I usually don't finish a full frame of line art before moving on to the next one. I feel like for secondary animation, which secondary animation is for like hair and clothes, stuff that flows that is not part of the full body, secondary animation is just a little easier to keep track of when I'm focusing on only it. And actually pretty much anything in general is a little bit easier to focus on when I'm only working on that certain little part of the animation throughout the whole thing. And I really can only do this when it's on the line art phase. I mean, I do it for sketches, but I end up having to do a lot of touch-ups in order to make the entire animation itself look good. Because, when you focus on just one thing and you don't realize the big picture, it can end up looking a little wonky. But for the sketch phase, it's not so bad. I can usually tend to fix things a little easier on there because it's a messier thing. but for line art, it's harder to go back and fix a bunch of stuff that's already been like precisely line arted and stuff. But anyway, so with this, I tend to focus on a certain thing, not all the time. When I feel like it'll turn out better, that's usually what I'll do. Either that, or I'll start to be getting bored and I'll want to switch to focusing on something else. My animations are a little bit messy that way for when I'm working on them. If I feel myself getting tired and bored of a certain thing, I will just move to a different area and animate that instead. So if you notice me doing that, just know that I was just trying to work through the tedium. I will say probably the thing that I enjoyed most about animating in this whole thing is the skirt. Again, it is not perfect, but I feel like I am really happy with how the weight feels of it, because it doesn't feel kind of flat, it feels more bouncy, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I tend to really not enjoy animating hair. It's just such a nebulous thing that is very hard for me to end up making look like it flows. So, the hair is not my favorite, but I don't dislike how it came out. It's just, I like how other things look a little better. Like, I like the legs a little better, for example, in this animation anyway. The legs and shoes in general. I feel like they are a little hard to make not look clunky for me, so I'm glad that they end up looking more delicate. Because that's just sort of what I want to capture for Halen. Something else that you probably noticed I worked on last, at least in the sketching, was the laces on the bodice. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to do that, but it ended up looking a little empty without it, so I ended up doing it. I was able to copy and paste, but in general, adding a detail like that is a little like sentencing myself to pain, because if I wanted to animate this specific version of this little maid outfit, then I would have to remember to do all those laces, and depending on what the animation is, that could be very painful. Can't always copy and paste. But when I can, I do, because it is just not worth it to spend a million years trying to get some certain thing to look good when, it's not really that important. I tend to take a lot of shortcuts in my animation, and I feel like my life is better for it. I try really hard not to be a perfectionist, even though I do kind of sway that way, but I do my best not to lean fully into that. Just gotta realize what I make is not gonna be perfect anyway, gotta move on and try to finish things. Just checked what's on the screen right now. It looks like I'm animating arms. Oh man, those were annoying because of the whole perspective thing. It's really hard for me to try and get that sort of thing right. I still don't think it looks that good, but it goes so fast in the animation it doesn't super matter. Oh, I also remember sort of struggling with the skirt when he does his curtsy at the end. I couldn't decide if I wanted it to be like fully stretched or if I still wanted there to be like a certain ruffle at the front or like how it would go, because like I didn't super have a good reference for it. I felt like it should probably stretch, so I had to adjust it so much and fix all that up. And then all the ruffles too. Truly, it's not a good idea to try to animate such a detailed outfit. This is why you make a concept for the character design that you're going to use in your animation before actually doing it. But it's for my ending. It's going to be all fancy, so it's fine. Well, we got some more secondary animation here with the little hair things at the front. I wish I didn't love that hairstyle on him so much, because then I would definitely change it to all his hair being, like, behind his shoulders. I did actually recently do a simplified Halen based on his, like, actual outfit, not the maid outfit. I was actually so sad because I usually had a lot of blue in his outfit. His outfit is, like, pink, gold, and blue. It was supposed to sort of signify, like, a sunset. I wanted him to have sunset colors. So he's been like that for many years, and in that new little redesign I was doing, I just could not make the blue sash work with the rest of the outfit if I didn't have the blue trim on the main dress. But it didn't make sense if the main dress had blue trim, so really the only blue parts of him left were the sash and his eyes, but that just didn't look good to me. So I really flipped back and forth on what colors went where, and it was so frustrating, but I did end up taking away the blue. I just felt like if I did do like a larger animation project, that probably would be an easier version of him to animate. Although I'm not really sure what I would make as a bigger project with that. Since I've really been loving those 4 characters I was talking about earlier, the 3 in my intro and then this 4th in my outro, I was like, well, what if they were all for a team and they went out and did little missions and stuff? But I was like, but then I would have to do world building and all this other stuff, and it wouldn't make sense with the actual OC world that I have. But I was thinking, does that matter? Should I just make a little simple series of them doing random missions and stuff? Just to have some fun? I don't know, it's hard to decide. Basically, the main thing that was inspiring me to make some sort of, like, little series with those 4 characters is that I've been playing a lot of Genshin. I've been playing a lot of Genshin Impact, which if you don't know is an anime-style game with a ton of characters, and they all have an elemental power, and you have a team of 4 that you use for your little daily missions and stuff, and beating bosses and all that stuff. So since I've been playing a lot of that game, I've been thinking a lot about my OCs while playing it and what kind of character they would be in the game. Like, Theo would obviously be an archer. I'd probably give him the dendro element, which is just plants. The other 3 are a little bit nebulous on what they would be because, Daimi generally has a scimitar, which is a sort of like a little sword. And Halen also tends to have a sword that he has, but he just doesn't use. He usually uses like martial arts sort of fighting moves. And in Genshin, basically you use what is called a catalyst, and you can sort of do like physical fighting that has some elemental effects to it. There's like not many characters who do that, but I feel like Halen would sort of be like that. But then I also wanted Robbie to be a catalyst user, which is basically like, generally a catalyst user is like a mage. They use like a magic book or a magic like floating thingy. Basically you can call them wizards. And I felt like Robbie suited that the most, but I was like, I didn't want to have 2 of the same sort of weapon user on the team. So if I changed Halen to be a sword user, he'd be the same as Daimi, and I really like Daimi having a sword, but then I was like, but what if I gave him a claymore, which is basically just a bigger sword? I feel like it would be pretty cool and fitting to his character. He's usually the strong one, but I really don't want to lose that part of Halen where he uses snake style, so I don't know. But that's Genshin stuff. But what if I wanted to do my own stuff? Like my own original idea where there's 4 people on a team and they all do missions. Totally original idea. Genshin just has been inspiring me. I just feel like it would be cute to make a little series of 4 characters being on a team and sort of going out and doing random missions. The thing is, I struggle in my writing to do like long-form storyline sort of things. Even though I do have them, I just struggle to execute them. I'm way better at writing internal struggles and smaller picture things. And I was also thinking about other series that I like, which are more episodic, that are also sort of like action-oriented, like Teen Titans, TMNT 2003, Shaolin Showdown, just a bunch of those kind of things that are episodic mostly. Like sometimes there's a little bit of a storyline, but mostly it goes like episode by episode. And I was like, that would be kind of a fun thing to make. That's probably the thing that I would be able to do. But, that requires me getting voice actors, doing sound work, doing music, doing sound effects. I really don't like doing all that stuff. I much prefer just working on animation. So I don't know, that was a lot of rambling of just me thinking of like what sort of big projects I want to do in the future. And I just don't know. Like, I feel like I could voice Theo, Daimi, and Robbie. I feel like I could voice those 3. I could probably even voice Halen. So, that would be me voicing 4 characters, which I have done that in the past for my own personal projects, and, it's not great, but just finding voice actors and stuff for this kind of thing is just so tiring for me. It comes down to, I would love to do it, I'd love to make something, I just don't know how I should go about it. At least, my own original thing. So anyway, that was me going on a big tangent, but that was 20 minutes of talking, so there was not much left to talk about after a while. I hope you did enjoy my rambles, and I hope you enjoyed some part of my animation work here. I'm really happy that I am able to do stuff like this, both like the actual animation and doing a speed paint like this. I know some people do really enjoy seeing the process, and it is really nice to hear when people do. Let me know how you've been doing. It's been a little while since I did a video like this. I'd love to hear how things are going. Leave a like and subscribe because YouTube loves when I tell you to do that. And have a good day.